Greetings, everyone. Welcome. Dale Parrish, host COS today. Ken, are you finished with your phone call?
Yeah, you're going to have to go on here for a bit, Dale. I've got a call I'm taking right at the moment.
Ken's got an emergency phone call that he's having to deal with right now, so we're going to push on here without him, and which I think we can do without any problem. So I want to welcome everyone to COS today. As normal, we're here to save the country with Convention of States. That's what we're trying to do, save the country with Convention of States. So we're going to get very soon into our program here. I want to, we always like to bring on Marengo Mike here to get us kind of started and get you to kind of tune in and watch us a little bit here. So we would bring on Marengo Mike, but I forgot to download him this evening. So we're getting off to kind of a rough start here, I'll tell you guys. But I'll blame it on Ken. He's kind of thrown me off here. But I simply forgot to load Marengo Mike on this morning in our opening here. So we will move right on, and we'll get into our first segment this I want to say this morning. I don't know why I'm trying to put us here in the morning hour, but we're not in the morning hour. We're in the evening here. So let me bring on our guest this evening, and we'll get into this first segment that we like to do so much, and that is the segment called the In Focus segment. This is a segment that we've been doing for some months now, as a matter of fact, and we've been getting very, very good responses to it. We bring on a couple guests, and between the four of us, sometimes five of us, we talk about what's caught our interest here in the news here lately, from a COS standpoint. And so, in other words, what's been our focus here recently? And it's always interesting because we seem to always have each one of us have a different topic that we want to talk about. So let me bring on our guests this evening. We've got two coming in, and we'll bring on Mr. Frank Vaughn. Hi, Frank.
Hey, gentlemen, how you doing?
Good. Frank is the Convention of States State Director in the state of Colorado. I always like to rib Frank, saying nothing going on in Colorado at all, and which is not true, right, Frank?
Oh, it's crazy out here. Absolutely crazy. You would not believe it.
So Frank is going to be with us, as well as our next guest, going to be with us for our COS Perspective segment, which will be upcoming after the In Focus segment. So let me bring on our other guest, and that is Mr. Gary Harbaugh. Hello, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Gary is the Convention of States State Director for Indiana. So we've got two state directors on this evening, and this ought to be very, very good. State directors, they've always got something to say. So we'll let them have their thing tonight. So, Frank, as we said, in this segment we just talk about what's caught our interest here recently in the news. What's your focus, Frank, in Colorado right now?
So recently, a law came to be. It's SB 003, and what it is a gun ban, and it severely restricts our liberties here in Colorado. The Department of Wildlife manages the program, believe it or not. There's no organization to this thing. The rollout's been terrible. You have to, and then the Department of Revenue, State Department of Revenue, is the organization that actually lists the weapons that you cannot purchase. And unless you go through a 12-hour course and then petition your sheriff to give you a pass to purchase the weapon. Then after all of that, and of course there's fees levied on this whole process. So it's not just an infringement of our Second Amendment rights. What they're also trying to do is layer these fees on to make it fiscally unattainable, supposedly. And so yeah, it's a big fight right now. It went into effect on August 1st, and of course we've got some great organizations. The Colorado State Shooting Association, they'll be bringing the lawsuits to fight this, but it's just a travesty. Our rights that are being trampled on, and it's a big deal out here in Colorado right now because we're 10 days into this thing, and it's a nightmare. So
now, Frank, do I understand this right? That any weapon, any gun that you plan on buying, you've got to go through a training course on it.
A 12-hour course.
What if you can't find a course on that particular weapon?
Well, it's not a course specific to the weapon.
Okay.
What it is just this nonsense that they've generated. And these folks that actually create these laws don't understand marksmanship. They don't understand gun rights. They just create. Matter of fact, AR-15s are the big scary thing for some reason. And so they've banned the AR platform. They've also banned any gun that has a detachable magazine. A Glock, for crying out loud, is on this list. So if you saved your hunter safety course license, you only have to take a 4-hour course. But if you can't find your hunter safety card, or if you're not in the database, you have to take the 12-hour course. And of course, the expenses and stuff are astronomical on this. And then they also imposed a 6.6% increase in the tax of purchasing the weapon as well. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, who performs the training?
So local gun stores, organizations that have been doing concealed carry type training can do it. They have to follow the requirements of the state and what they have to teach, and then you have to pass it with I think it's a 90% proficiency. You have to have 90% on the test.
You got to get a good grade, huh?
Yeah, in order to get your pass to go purchase the gun. So it's insanity.
And I'm sure the course, there's a fee for the course too, right?
There's a fee for the course. There's a fee to the sheriff. There's the additional 6.6% to purchase said weapon. It's just and it's just crazy because our taxes out here are 4.4%. But here recently, an organization did a study. We have Tabor out here, and thank goodness we have Tabor, because they can't just automatically tax us. They have to call them fees. And the judicial branch out here in Colorado said, hey, if you call it a fee, it's not a tax. But when you levy all those fees on top of our 4.4% tax rate, it's 14.2% is what our tax rate here is in Colorado. When you add the fees, it's higher than California.
Is that right?
And now we just got a new fee for 6.6% if you want to buy an AR-15.
So if you want to buy a weapon, then that's 14% goes up. That's even more.
Even more. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
So
what happens? I find this very interesting. What happens if you fail the course?
You cannot purchase the weapon.
You can't purchase the weapon.
Nope.
Do you get a chance to retake the course in time, or
that's a great question because that hasn't been ferreted out yet. The rollout on this thing has been just abhorrent. It's comical. If it wasn't the fact that they're taking away our Second Amendment rights, you would just laugh about it. But they're just systematically stripping our liberties.
Wow. Well,
so Frank, have they grandfathered people that already own these weapons, or what's with What happens there?
Yep, that they have grandfathered. Every weapon I own is illegal, but luckily grandfathered in. And then also high capacity magazines. They passed another law prohibiting high capacity magazines, and established minimum rounds that you can have in your magazines. So all this is just coming to a head here in Colorado. It'll be an interesting election year, that's for sure.
Frank, are there any weapons or guns that are not subject to this law?
Yeah, if you have a standard hunting rifle, bolt action that does not have a magazine, that's legal. I can go purchase that without taking this test and all that.
Oh, okay, a bolt action, okay.
Yeah, but if I have a bolt action rifle with a magazine, a detachable magazine, it's against the law. If I have a shotgun that has a magazine, got to go take this 12-hour course. The
magazine then gives you the ability to rapid fire. Is that what it's supposed to do, or
in their infinite wisdom, that's what they believe? It's just unfortunate that the level of knowledge that these people possess that are writing these laws, they just don't make any sense when they actually come to practice. So some of the weapons that they're disqualifying are just standard hunting rifles, but because they have a detachable magazine, you now have to go take a course and pay a fee and all that foolishness.
Wow. Okay.
Welcome to colorful Colorado.
Like we said, not much going on in Colorado. All right. Holy smokes. Oh, this ought to be interesting. I guess it's somewhat of a windfall for the organizations that can do the training. I guess this is going to drive more people to more business for them, I guess.
Yep.
I suppose. But anyway.
Well, gun sales here in Colorado went up 4x before the law went into effect. Because we also have a 3-day waiting period. So this law became in effect August 1st, but you had to 4 days earlier, you had to be able to fill out your paperwork, purchase the weapon, and wait the 3-day period to take ownership. And so that's why there was just a surge on gun stores here in Colorado. Yeah. It was quite comical.
Who was it? Was it President Obama that was recognized as the outstanding gun salesperson in the country? Wasn't it during his administration?
Yeah, and
he drove more and more people to buy guns.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Gary, we got to keep going here. Gary, what's on your mind this evening?
Well, I've just been looking at the war situation. We're involved in 2 wars, really. The war between Ukraine and Russia, because we're the supplier for Ukraine, and the war with Iran. And Iran has kind of turned the tables by saying they're not going to permit the Strait of Hormuz to be opened unless the United States meets their demands, like releasing all the assets, frozen assets, and paying them for the damage that we caused by this war. And so this is becoming a more difficult situation. And at some point, I think that this war is it's going to have to move beyond bombs and missiles and drones and involve ground troops, because the only way that you can really ultimately defeat a nation the size of Iran, is geographically a large nation, as long as they have a supply of bombs or really missiles or drones that they can keep moving around, you're not really going to conquer them without ground troops. And I worry about this situation. This is not a forecast that will happen, but it seems like this is becoming a wider war involving more countries in the Middle East. And it's it's a scary situation because you don't know where it's going to end, and there's no clear and easy path to a victory that I can see.
Yeah. I know it's frustrating because you would think that we would be able to bomb the heck out of the IRGC and just obliterate them. I think they're the ones that's calling the shots here. But I think you're right. But I believe it's the blockade on the oil exports out of Iran. That's the economic thing. It's got to take its toll eventually here, I believe.
It certainly does, but ideologically,
I don't know that you'll ever defeat that.
They don't care if their people suffer. In the United States, we have an elective government that has to maintain some level of popularity. They don't have to worry about that in Iran. They run the show, and it's my understanding there have been a lot more executions over there. So people know that, hey, you speak out in opposition to this government, you're probably going to wind up, 6 feet under. And so it's a difficult situation, and there's no clear path forward that I can see. And it's a frightening situation in that regard. I hope things work out for the best, but who knows?
I heard an interesting take on that, Gary, the other day when, and I know this was, I don't recall who it was exactly. I think it was a retired general. Anyway, what he had come up with when you started looking at what ifs, and obviously timing on this is a concern of the administration, but there was an interesting take on how we might finally approach the big bang, so to speak, on this to get it over with, and that was doing what Israel has done in the past. A flyover, dropping all kinds of leaflets, telling the people, get out of Tehran. You've got so many hours, get out. And just so you're being helpful in the way that to the people that are in Tehran that something's bad going to happen and it's time to leave. And once you've given that notice and you give enough time for people to get out, they hit Tehran with everything they've got, and that was a last gasp type attack on the IRGC to finish that off. I thought it was interesting because it might be something that eventually, and again, I know Israel has done this in the way they attacked Gaza and other areas, but it just might come down to that. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting take anyway.
Yeah, that is an interesting idea.
Well, the pinch point there is the strait. So if you were to take that card away from them, they couldn't play these games. And I heard that there was they were building a canal that was going to redirect shipping away from the Strait of Hormuz, and that they were in the process of building it, and it would be done by 2028. So,
yeah, I heard that too. That too. Is that the canal that connects the Red Sea?
I haven't dug into it. I heard it on the radio, I think, when I was driving in the car a couple of days ago. And I thought to myself, that's an interesting thing. If you take away, their ability, to tie up traffic there, and you give a more safe, secure way and probably more efficient to the shipping there, it would take at least this off the table. And then yeah, financially they're in crisis. Their economy is in the tank. So the question is how long can they survive like this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's why
I heard where we're sending more ships over to that area, something like 20 more. I don't know what the makeup is of that fleet, but yeah, you would think that we would be able to secure a route through the strait, so that ships could flow through there without any worry of being attacked. You would think. And what's also frustrating to me is not being able to hear what's going on with the people in Iran, and what forces are trying to ready themselves to take over or to fight this. You just don't hear much about that. You hear that it's going on, but you don't hear anything about it as to what the status is. So
Yeah. Well, it was unfortunate that those poor folks rose up about a month too early.
yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
That was unfortunate. Had those folks been there and they rose up in March, I think we'd have a different conversation right now.
yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, I think J.D. Vance was talking about the U.S. arming the Kurds to try to overcome the IRGC. And, that's probably, it wouldn't surprise me if it isn't already happening now. But, there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, and who knows where it's going to end up.
I don't know. Was this a mistake, you think, on Trump's part? Is it too early to tell yet?
I think it's
I
too
think
soon
it's too.
to tell.
Yeah, it's too soon, and I don't think it's a mistake. I mean, when you say it's too soon to tell, 47 years of messing around with this, I don't think we're going to get anybody else that's going to address it. So I think he was forced into doing it with the other side of the coin being a nuclear weapon, and they wouldn't hesitate to shoot it.
Do you think has he underestimated Iran? Do you think he underestimated them?
I don't think
Maybe.
underestimate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've been messing with this since Carter, and it's been the carrot and the stick. Carter, Reagan comes in with the stick, then you've got Clinton that comes in, with the carrot, back and forth. I think we've already said it here. They're just fanatics. They're fanatical.
Yeah.
This group of people.
Yeah.
And you cannot bargain with them. They
Right.
just need to be eliminated, unfortunately.
Can't reason. Yep.
But every other president kicked the can. President Trump hasn't.
Yeah, you
So
got to
I-
give him that.
Yep.
And
The
I
last
think
two
it may be,
The
I think
last
it
two
may-
gave him billions of dollars. So I mean,
yeah,
That's a big carrot.
Yeah,
big
it
carrot.
may be 20 years before we really know whether this was worked out well or not. It's too soon to tell. It's way too soon. I think it's going to take a long time to really determine, whether this was how successful it was or.
I think you're right. All right, let's move on. Ken, what's on your mind?
Well, a couple things, but the first one I'll leave go. It got me off distracted on getting started here tonight, and I won't go into it. But that's another problem altogether. I'm looking at some common sense. I mean, why is it so difficult for so many people in this country to not be able to reason with common sense? And the latest one I saw, which just doesn't really make any sense to me, is our wonderful governor in Virginia, who is not disputing the fact that there was over 250,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls that was supposed to be taken off, and she put a moratorium on it. She just said, no, we're not going to, we're going to go forward for the next 90 days, and we're not going to remove these people from the voter ranks. I don't understand.
Well, if they're non-citizens, they can't vote. Ken, see, it's against the law for them to vote if they're non-citizens. It's just they shouldn't be on the voter rolls. That's
Well, period. So I know she's a governor, but come on. you have to make the call at this point. They're non-citizens. She's not disputing that call, but she's just saying, no, we're not going to remove them yet. We're going to wait 90 days. Then we'll remove them. Why? It's obvious.
Well, of course it's obvious. So many things are obvious.
I guess that's what's caught my focus this week is just common sense. It's just unheard of in a majority, in a good percentage of the country at this point.
Well, common sense, that kind of leads, that's a good lead in to what I had in mind. And
I try, Dale. I try.
And that's the WNBA. Now, just to refresh and remind everybody, the W stands for women, okay? The Women's National Basketball Association. Women's, okay? And as a matter of fact, in their bylaws, it clearly states that only women are eligible to play in this league. But for my goodness, for some reason, this is now an issue with, I guess, the definition of a woman, I guess, is what's coming into play.
They can't define it. So
evidently. I guess I heard a clip from some congressional hearing. Some lady was asked, what is a woman? And she said, it's whoever thinks he or she is a woman. Whoever thinks they're a woman.
The new definition. Well, I don't know whether you saw it, Dale, or not, but I saw a clip just a little while ago where, and this is again mind-blowing as well. The coach of the Indiana Fever was addressing the fact that Sophie Cunningham was deliberately and flagrantly fouled. The call was turned into a flagrant foul, and the Indiana Fever coach was defending the other player. And as I watch this, you've got the two players. You've got Caitlin and another player, flanking her, and Caitlin literally drops her head into her hands,
almost hiding her face.
Yeah, like I can't believe what I'm hearing. Her own coach, defending the other player. So I told you this before, Dale, before the program started. This league's going to eat itself.
I believe so, and of course, as you know, two former NBA male players are now planning to come out for the 2027 draft. I don't know how do you determine yourself eligible for the draft? I don't know how what that process is involved.
I saw the requirements for that. It's graduate 4 years of college. If you haven't graduated college, you have to be out of high school for 4 years. There was a few other points on it, but there was nothing really that would negate NBA players from signing up, I guess. I don't know. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't.
And I assume now, I know for a fact one of the NBA players, this is a joke. I mean, this is intentional to create. This other guy, I'm not sure about him. I mean, he's got a wig and he is claiming that he's transitioning. I don't know if he's just playing the game here or what, but Gary, Frank, have you seen this too?
Yeah. This is you just can't make this stuff up. I saw him with the wig on. I kind of took it as a joke that he's just showing the level of absurdity that's here. But the first guy that's actually put his letter in saying I'll be there to try out, this guy is like 5'10".
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, 6'10".
Yeah. I was gonna say
he's almost 7 feet tall. at like 250 pounds. It's incredible. And then they also have another individual, a man playing in female basketball over in France.
Yes.
And he is now looking at potentially the opportunity to come and play in the WNBA.
Right.
So,
Right.
so,
Well,
but-
and then there's a Fox News host that is putting up $2 million of his own money. He wants to be able to select a boys' high school team to arrange a game between a team of his selection, boys' high school players, to play against the last champion of the WNBA. So we'll see how that happens. We'll see what happens with that.
Well, I don't know about that. But I feel sorry for Caitlin Clark. I mean, she's brought so much to this league. I mean, nobody paid any attention to this league before she got into it, and this could completely destroy the league and her career, and that would be really a shame. That would be a shame.
Yeah.
Well,
The insanity.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, you have the insanity of this league essentially, and the other players want to destroy her. That would be like in professional golf, people trying to kick out, Scotty Scheffler or somebody who's bringing all this attention to professional golf. Caitlin Clark's bringing all this attention to the WNBA, and they want to get rid of her because she's making more money than they are, and she's white, and they don't like that.
Yeah.
It's insane.
The race it spews of racism. So where is all this racism talk? I haven't heard anybody coming out and throw that around. To label it. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. That's a wrap on our In Focus group here, our segment. Gary, Frank, don't go away. Ken and I got a thing or two to do here, and then we'll be bringing you back for our COS Perspective segment. And tonight we're going to be talking about democratic socialism, which is a hot topic right now. So Frank, Gary, don't go away. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye. All right, Ken. Good deal. So I see you're off the phone. All right. I hope you. I got a little sense as to what that phone call was about, and I feel sorry for you, bud. That's
timing is never any good. And yeah, I mean, at this point, had to deal with it because I had to deal with it.
I've been involved in that kind of phone call, and that's not fun. It's not fun at all.
No.
And it's not over yet, right?
Well, no. Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's going to run its course, but
Yeah.
What I had to do to take care of it is done. So yeah.
Okay. Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Ken, John Ackerman has gotten on his soapbox again, and has put together a good one here on immigration. And so let's bring John on and let him get on his soapbox and tell us what's on his mind.
John Ackerman for Convention of States. So there's a housing crisis in America. Want to know why housing is so expensive? It's pretty simple. Follow the money and follow the demand. First, post-COVID government policies caused inflation, and that made everything connected to housing more expensive. Lumber, concrete, appliances, labor, insurance, property taxes, mortgage financing, all of these cost more than they did just a few years ago. But there's another simple economic fact that politicians often prefer to ignore, and that is that demand matters. When you add millions of people to the population, those people need somewhere to live. More people competing for a limited number of houses and apartments means higher prices and higher rents. And that's not politics. That's economics 101. And all of that is because of immigration. The United States has millions of people living here illegally, with estimates of the illegal immigrant population reaching at least 10 million. 10 million! Whatever your position on immigration, one fact is impossible to escape, and that is that people need housing. They rent apartments, they rent houses, they compete for the available units, and the prices go up. In communities already suffering from a housing shortage, additional substantial numbers of new residents puts additional pressure on the market, particularly for low-cost housing. Yet somehow we're expected to believe that population growth has nothing whatsoever to do with housing demand. Americans are then told that the answer is simply to build more houses. Fine, build more houses. But let's stop pretending that supply is the only issue. You can't keep increasing demand while failing to increase supply and then blame the resulting price increases on everyone and everything except the policies that created the imbalance. The law of supply and demand. Inflation pushed costs higher. A housing shortage pushed prices even higher. And millions of additional people needed places to live. If politicians genuinely want to provide affordable housing, they need to address both sides of the equation. Otherwise, ordinary Americans will continue asking the same question. How did the American dream of owning a home become something so many Americans can no longer afford?
Right on, I tell you.
Right on, John. Yeah, John. Boy, he does a good job on these. He does a good
I
job.
mean, you can't break it down any better than that, Dale. You
Yep.
can't.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, I want to bring Gary and Frank back in, and let's get started on our segment called the COS Perspective. So let me bring Frank and Gary back on. Hi, guys. Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Well, I want to welcome you all to the COS Perspective segment. We do this once or twice a month, and this month, in the month of August, we've decided we're going to do it twice. And tonight, we're talking on a subject that has moved increasingly into America's political conversation, and that's democratic socialism. Our title tonight is Democratic Socialism, America Reimagined. How many times have we heard that term, reimagined? Many, many times, haven't we? And I think that word reimagined gets to the heart of our discussion. Supporters of democratic socialism don't necessarily describe what they're processing, or rather what they're proposing, as traditional socialism. They often describe it as expanding democracy, not just in government, but into our economy and other parts of American life. So tonight, we're going to try to get beyond the labels. What exactly is democratic socialism? How influential has it become in American politics? Why does it appeal to a growing number of Americans? And perhaps most importantly, what could it mean for the future of our country and our system of self-government? As we normally do on the COS perspective, we'll examine the issue in three parts. What is happening? Why is it happening? And what does it mean? And then I'll come in at the end and look at it from what we call the COS perspective. So let's move to part one of what is happening. And I chose Frank Vaughn, the state director in Colorado, for this part because he's got some firsthand experience with this. We need to understand what we're actually talking about here, okay? What does democratic socialism mean today? How is it different from traditional socialism? And you know, we've all heard about socialism all of our adult life. Okay, I mean, I certainly have. Marxism, socialism, communism. So, and what role are organizations such as the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, playing in moving these ideas into the mainstream American politics? So, as we stated here, let's get started with what is happening. And Frank, I'm going to let you take it away, bud.
Yeah, well, what I'll try to do is establish a foundation here for our conversation. So I've got some stuff here I put together. But it's interesting here in Colorado, we have 5 chapters here just in Colorado. So they've been a force here for quite some time. And so when we talk about democratic socialism, I think the first thing we need to do is understand how the movement describes itself today, because it has changed. Many Americans hear the word socialism, just like you were talking about, Dale, and immediately they think about government control of the economy, centralized planning, or authoritarian countries of the past. Today's democratic socialists present their movement very differently. They talk about economic fairness, affordable housing, healthcare, workers' rights, and giving ordinary people more control over the decisions that affect their lives. So how would we define democratic socialism? At its core, I believe it seeks to extend democratic control beyond government and into the economy. Its supporters believe that that the public should have greater control over large corporations, essential industries, and economic resources. Now that's different from simply supporting a larger social safety net. Social democracy, which we see in several European countries, generally keep private enterprise in place, but regulate it more heavily and provide broader government benefit. Democrat socialism goes further. Its long-term goal is to move beyond capitalism by changing who owns and controls significant parts of our economy. What distinguishes it from the traditional socialism many Americans remember is primarily the method that they're taking. The modern Democrat socialist says they want to achieve their goals through elections, legislation, labor organizing, public campaigns, and other democratic processes, not through one-party government or a violent revolution. That brings us to the Democrat Socialist of America, or the DSA. The DSA is not a political party. It's a national activist organization that works through local chapters, campus organizations, labor unions, public campaigns, electoral policy, and many DSA-supported candidates run as Democrats, but the organization has its own socialist identity and long-term agenda. The DSA has grown from what was once a relatively small organization into the largest socialist organization in the United States. Its influence is not measured only by membership, but its recruitment. It recruits candidates, it organizes volunteers, it supports labor campaigns, develops policy proposals, and moves the ideas that were once considered outside the public mainstream or the political mainstream into everyday political debate. Its priorities include Medicare for all, which how would you even be able to afford that? stronger labor unions, publicly supported housing, free public education, student debt relief, the Green New Deal policies, higher taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations, and greater public ownership of major industries in our country. So it's important to understand that the DSA does not view these merely as individual government programs. It sees them as a step towards broader transformation of economic ownership and political power. So why has the message of America Reimagined become effective? And I think it's because the message sounds hopeful, not revolutionary. It doesn't begin with socialist theories. It begins with problems people experience every day: rent, medical bills, student debt, wages, and the fear that home ownership may be slipping out of reach. The movement then connects those genuine frustrations to a much larger political and economic vision that they have. It presents increased government guarantees and collective control as the path to fairness, security, and freedom. And that is what's happening today. The Democrat Socialists, the Democrat socialism is being presented not as socialism of the past, but as democratic responses to the modern economic problems that we face. Whether we disagree with this vision, we should understand it accurately. The important question is not what benefits are being promised, but also how the movement proposes to change ownership, change political power, the relationship between citizens and government. And I just believe that's the resurgence of the new DSA.
Good, Frank. Good. I think, so many of the things you said, it just resonates with what I've learned about socialism through various studies well, we've done many presentations here on COS today on socialism, Marxism, and it's all about the oppressed and the oppressor, and this ownership thing. That sounds it sounds like you as the individual would be part owner, but it's not really the case. It's the government becomes the owner. Am I right? I mean, this is all while it's packaged to attract you today, it's still the same old socialism. Am I right?
Well, but it's packaged much differently.
Yes.
They're using very different language. Okay. What they're trying to do is to appeal to the young folks. It was just mentioned earlier, home ownership. Home ownership is becoming unaffordable for young folks. There's no such thing as a starter home anymore. My daughter, for example, and her fiance, they live in an apartment. They're trying to save money, but in my neighborhood, homes are going for $650,000 for a standard ranch home.
Yeah,
that's just pricing these kids out of the market, and our education system has done us no favors, right? The problem is that what did I read a stat? It was 37% of Democrats believe in socialism. That's staggering.
Yeah,
absolutely staggering. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but what the DSA is actually wanting to do. But yeah, it's just it's socialism has raised its ugly head, and our education system and we ourselves are to blame. We got to get control of our own government.
Gosh, I think there's certainly a way to help that process along, getting control of our government. I think it's called Convention of States, as a matter of fact. but that we'll talk about that a little later on here. But all right, now Frank, as I said, I I wanted you to do this part because you, as you said, you have some card carrying DSA members
Yes.
in your state legislature, right?
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
And they're not bashful about it.
Right.
You know, it used to be that it was all cloak and dagger what they were wanting to do, and you know, they would keep an arm's distance, you know, because you know, the way that they see the progress that they've made, they've now come out of the closet on this thing. They will fully tell you to your face what they want to do. Okay, and the unfortunate thing is they've been very effective here in Colorado, you know, but it's very interesting though because here in Colorado, the Democratic Party has started pushing back on them, and they actually primaried a DSA member, and the Democrat Party won. They got him primaried.
Did they? I know this is presenting a real problem for the Democratic Party. It's it's really splitting the party, I think. And,
yeah, the DSA has infiltrated the Democratic Party, and
you know, Frank, I don't know if this is the proper place to bring this up, but I'll do it anyway. I did a presentation not too long ago here on COS Today called "The Oath of Office." And I did that because as I saw these Democratic Socialists winning primaries in different states, the thought crossed my mind: if they get elected in a general election, at some point they got, well, not at some point, at the very beginning of their service, in whatever capacity they're elected into, they've got to take an oath of office. And just if you take, for example, a representative or a senator to national, they've got to take an oath of office, which they've got to confirm an oath to the Constitution. And am I correct that a Democratic Socialist doesn't believe in the Constitution? Am I right?
It's just words to them.
How can they swear allegiance to the Constitution when they clearly don't believe that?
That's the crux of it right there.
I think that's going to be a real dilemma, I believe.
Yeah, but in their perspective, you know, they'll just mouth the words. They don't feel it in their heart. You know? They've got their own agenda and they're wanting to execute.
Is it clear to you, the DSA members in the Colorado legislature? I mean, is it clear to you that they don't support the Constitution? Or do they?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Well, you look at House Bill 003, the gun ban.
The gun ban? Mm-hmm.
They were told that it was unconstitutional at the federal level, but it was also unconstitutional at the state level. And the Republican minority brought that up to them, and they turned around to them and said, we don't care. You're going to have to sue us. We know it's unconstitutional, but we're doing it anyway. And that's a shame. It's an absolute shame.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Frank. Very good. Very good. Well, let's move on. So we've established what democratic socialism is and looked at it at how these ideas are showing up in American politics. Frank's been giving us that amount of information. But that raises what I think is an equally important question. Why are these ideas gaining an audience in America? For generations, the word socialism carried considerable political baggage in this country. And that's true. Today, particularly among younger Americans, that doesn't seem to be nearly as true. So what's changed? Is it dissatisfaction with capitalism, economic insecurity, generational attitudes, education? I think that's a biggie. A changing understanding of government's role in society? I don't know. But that brings us to part 2. Why is it happening? Ken, can you shed any light on this for us?
Well, Dale, I think you hit a couple of real important points there. And I think every one of them, it's kind of a combination of them all, actually. And quite frankly, we're asking why. When you look at DSA, one of the first obvious answers is that they want to take over the Democratic Party. The current factor driving many Democrats to support left-wing candidates isn't ideology, but it's a revolt against the party's leadership and the political establishment more broadly. You've got Democratic primary voters. They aren't being drawn primarily to the leftism of these DSA candidate, but rather their anti-party orientation first. So first consider that polling data shows relatively few Democrats think their party has moved too far to the left. I think Frank brought up a couple of numbers there, and I've got a few things here. The Democrats think their party has moved too far to the left. Just 14% said so in a July 2025 poll. In a May 2026 New York Times Siena poll, put that share at 20%, with 55% saying the party is about where it should be. So, what Democrats do say is that their party is feeble. In an early 2026 poll, they were asked to self-describe Democrats to grade their own party on a list of traits, like whether it governs competently, cares about people like you, or is ideologically extreme. And on a 1 to 10 scale, Democrats scored their party 7.0 on competent, 7.2 on principled, and 7.5 on empathetic, but just 5.4 on tough. And in the same poll, 57% of Democrats called their own party out of touch. So just 58% said it has strong leadership, and a plurality said it should do more to fight Donald Trump. So that's a big factor in it as well. We won't go into the TSD part of all things, but when we asked Democrats in April, in their own words, what bothered them most about their party, the top answer was they were too weak. They didn't fight enough. And at 30%, well ahead of everything else. So what it comes from, or where it comes from, is the roots are really in the early 1900s, split inside Marxism over reform versus revolution. Edward Bernstein's Evolutionary Socialism, which was 1899, argued socialism could be reached gradually and democratically. The British Fabians made a similar bet. As Soviet communism turned authoritarian after 1917, democratic socialists defined themselves against it, insisting that socialism without democracy was not socialism. So when you look at Karl Kautsky's critique of Bolshevik, I can't even say that tonight, Bolshevik, the one-party rule is an early example. So in the United States, the lineup runs from Eugene Debs through Michael Harrington, who founded the Democratic Socialists of America in 1982. The movements surged after 2015 around Bernie Sanders and a growing DSA and figures like ACO, Alexandra Cortez. In Pew's June 2026 political typology, the nearest group is the leftward progressives. So in the brief, in basically in brief, the democratic socialist lens treats healthcare, housing, and education as rights, reads billionaires as systemic failures rather than success stories, and faults the democratic establishment for timidity. Climate change is a reason to restructure the economy and not to sell carbon credits. It's definitely generational. And so when you look at the younger generations that are heavily buying into this, it is really about pushing out the establishment. They want to take over that Democratic Party. They want to get rid of the old boomers and I don't even know what you call a few of those. I think they're beyond boomers. A few of them that are still in office. And I'd venture to say again, we're going to go back to convention of states here, but we have term limits on as one of our pillars to solve that problem. We could get rid of the establishment and those that have been in the government for 40, 50 years and get rid of that without having to go through giving the government, control over your house, your money, and everything else involved. So, when you look at the younger people, it all sounds good. Again, none of these younger people have any clue or any knowledge really of what it's like to live under socialism, Marxism, communism. I heard an interesting comment the other day saying that for all these people that are part of the DSA or believe in that, they should probably just be shipped off to Cuba for a month to live, and then they'd probably welcome back and kiss the soil when they arrive back in the United States after living, actually experiencing it and living under it. Why is it happening? They want control of the party, and they want to experiment with something they know nothing about, and that's my take on it, really.
Yeah, you would think of all the people that have fled societies and countries and governments that were socialistic and came to America to escape, you would think that what they have to say would be more meaningful to people. I don't understand that.
Well, and part of that, Dale, is that they're not hearing that part. The media is playing right along with this, and Frank mentioned too the education part of it. Now, we've talked a lot about education, and it's been a big thorn in my side for a long time. We really fell asleep at the wheel years ago and let the education system get turned over totally to the liberals and the far left, and it's really come home to roost just in the last 5-6 years. We really don't have to get into where that has gone. So, our education has failed us. Mathematics, social studies, economics, and all of that has been thrown out the window for these just extreme views, and the education system of a whole generation and a half now has been lost on these views. So we really, as Frank said, we have ourselves to blame, but we really need to understand at this point, what these primaries and again these general elections, how important they are, and I for one don't think that there's I think there's a large amount of people in America that see this, and it's not going to let it happen in a general. I just, I find it hard to believe that they'll have enough to really push through a big general election. But it's something that we should learn from now, and we need to really squash it.
You talk about the general election coming up and the midterms coming up. I'm thinking maybe our topic in September for Steel West Perspective might be the midterm elections and whether we can we trust the results of the midterm elections.
That goes back to my In Focus segment. And unless we do something about governors like the one in Virginia, we know this is going on. We just know what's going on. And I think that's, again, this goes back to the SAVE Act, and it does. And we, for where we are, where we have a president, we have the House, we have the Senate, this should be a no-brainer. It really should be a no-brainer. And we have to fault the people that we've elected again. we've elected them, and we got to. I mean, we really have to do a lot better. But then again, we're fighting what we realize at this point has been corrupted for a long time.
You know, maybe Frank's got some input on this too. Frank was talking about, we talk about young people and affordability of housing, and Frank, you said a starter home, a ranch starter home in Colorado is like $600,000, something $650,000.
Yep.
Well, here in Indiana, it's still about 200,000. And of course, when I was young, it was 23,000. So, but I'm just wondering. Yes, the cost in Colorado may be 650,000, but are the salaries commensurate with that? Are the salaries out unbelievably high?
Yeah, you're seeing several things happen. We've had one party rule in Colorado for over a decade, and the policies that they've put in place, the fee structures that they've put in place, they're running businesses out of the state. Okay, and we're talking big businesses, right? And they're going, look, we're done putting up with these policies and these taxes and fees, so we're going to move to states that are more business minded. So when they leave, people get laid off, right? Another thing that happened out here is we have a very high government employment percentage out here in Colorado.
Oh, really?
And then of course when the Doge issues came along, they started right sizing government. You saw a lot of those jobs go away as well. And so it's interesting to see, Trump's perspective on this is that, look, we want to grow the private sector, not the government sector.
Right.
Colorado wants to grow the government sector. The state of Colorado has doubled the size of state government in the last decade, doubled it.
Wow.
And they're coming back to us again, telling us that they don't have enough money. So where is rock bottom? That's the question. Where will people wake up? And that's why socialism for these younger folks is very appealing, but they lack the critical thought. Just Medicare, for example, Medicare for all. How's that going to be paid for? Can you articulate that for me? Or can you enlighten me in what part of the world socialism has worked?
Medicare for all. I mean, you can look at the health system in Europe, and what is it? The wait time to get to see a doctor for a certain type of thing could be a year. That's what's going to happen if it's Medicare for all.
Well, Canada comes to the United States to get medical care. The ones that can afford it.
Yeah.
The ones that can't have to wait.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's this is not new. This movement, but it's certainly coming at an opportune time. It seems. I don't know how else to put it. Or coming at a vulnerable time. But okay, all right, Ken. Thanks a lot. Let's move on then. Well, we've now looked at democratic socialism. What democratic socialism is, and some of the reasons it may be gaining greater acceptance. But ideas ultimately have consequences. So now we come to what may be the most important part of our discussion. What would democratic socialism mean if more of these ideas actually became public policy? What could it mean for the size and responsibility of the federal government? For spending and the national debt? For individual responsibility and economic freedom? And ultimately, for the relationship between the American citizen and government. So now we come to our third part. What does it mean? And we save that for Gary, because he's going to bring the hammer down. He's going to tell us what this is all about. So, Gary, what does it mean?
Gee, Dale, can you ask those questions one at a time? First of all, just to kind of echo the themes that we've already heard, the Democratic Socialists have been very effective at mainstreaming of formerly fringe political ideas and policies, whether it's Medicare, eliminating ICE, whatever it may be. And certainly one implication of it is that it is creating greater polarization in our society, and it's polarization of the far left against what might be called the center left and the right, or conservatism. And it's also creating polarization of young versus old. So polarization, division in society is a very unhealthy thing for society as a whole. As far as implications about the size and the scope of government, obviously got to be much bigger. I think Frank mentioned in Colorado, they've doubled the size of government. Presumably that means twice as many employees in 10 years. That is very much what happens under a democratic socialism, or whatever you want to call it. Bigger government, it costs more money. Now, one issue I would take was something that was said about in Canada, people, if they can afford it, they come to the United States. I had a secretary a number of years ago who was Canadian and living in the United States. She had relatives in Canada who were doctors. Guess who did not wait for medical care in Canada? Right. And this is really a very important thing to understand about socialism. The people who are politically well connected will not be the people waiting in line. The mayors, the governors, all these people that are politically powerful, they won't wait. The average citizens, they are the people who will be waiting in line or coming to a different country to try to find health care. So socialism sounds beautiful. Hey, we're all even. Everybody gets good medical care. It's great for everybody, except it doesn't really work that way. It never has. And it's impossible for it to work that way, because when you have unlimited demand for a limited amount of services, you have to ration it some way. And the way it's typically rationed is people who are low priority, they just wait, or they never get the service that they need. The implications for free enterprise, you're really destroying free enterprise. And, you're taking apart the system of free markets and free people making free choices for freedom of exchange. And you ask, what questions should we be asking? I think some of the questions we should be asking of people who are leaning toward, this democratic socialism ideas, or the first question I might ask people would be, do you believe this is biblical? And
that's a good question.
So the whole premise of socialism violates the 8th and the 10th commandments. You shall not steal. And really socialism, through taxation, steals from one person to give to another. And they do it, the people are elected and they voted for these taxes. Really? Do the billionaires really get to vote? They're obviously outvoted on, what Mamdani is doing in New York for, this tax on second homes. The billionaires, they don't have the votes to stop these things. Millionaires don't have the votes to stop these things. When the masses of people, and this is why we had a Bill of Rights, because the framers of our Constitution said, hey, you can't have a democracy where the majority rules. That's mob rule, and government will abuse the rights of the minority. And that's really what democratic socialism is based on, is the idea of stealing from some people. And let's face it, what's behind that? Coveting what other people have, that the people who don't have it say, well, I want what they've got, and so I will use the government as a tool to get what I think I've got coming. And that's just it's destructive to the civil society. It's destructive to the harmony of the culture and everything. And so some of the other questions I would ask were, won't these policies destroy social harmony? And they will, because you're pitting people against each other. How will some kind of social harmony be restored? America has a long history of being the most generous people on earth in terms of being charitable, giving to all kinds of things. But when you make people give at basically the point of a gun, they don't have any charitable instinct. And when people feel like something is an entitlement, they're not appreciative of an entitlement the way they are appreciative of people genuinely helping them because they care. Another question I would simply ask people who are leaning toward democratic socialism is, why do you hate America? Because really, they're going to destroy the America that is, the founders created. If you go down this road, why do you hate freedom of commerce among free people? If I own an apartment building and I want to rent apartments to people at a price that the tenant and I both agree on, why is it that government has to step in and say, no, you're not permitted, that rent's too high, or this or that? Rent control type things have destroyed affordable housing, have destroyed the housing market in many cities. People don't repair the houses. They don't do the maintenance. They don't provide the care that the management would require to maintain a property. They just let it go deteriorate. Another question I would ask is, if Obamacare didn't solve the healthcare cost problem, why do you think more of the same will do that? And you have to ask people questions to make them think about what they're trying to do, because what they really want to do is to destroy America. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Frank, Gary. The one thing in your part that gets to me is the taking away the incentive to create, and in our system of capitalism, if you innovate and if you create something that the public wants, then you should be rewarded for that. You should be rewarded for that. But if you have a system of socialism, that initiative, that desire to create, goes away, it seems to me, since there's no reward for it, right?
That's right. Well, if you look at what happened in the old Soviet Union when they collectivized the farms, and people didn't get the benefit of their own labor on their own farms, what happened? Well, mass starvation is what happened. And when you destroy incentives for people to be productive, what happens is they're not going to be productive. They'd rather just take what they can get for free, as it were, as an entitlement. And you take away that incentive to produce. America's economic system of really freedom of exchange among free people. I saw something interesting the other day. We call it capitalism. The term capitalism is actually a negative that was used by Karl Marx to describe the system of free exchange. He called it capitalism because capital is bad. Those capitalists are bad. We're not really capitalists in the sense that we want to reward people that are wealthy, even though the the Fed system of inflating the finances does that. But we want a system of free exchange among free people. And when people have freedom of exchange, people will make agreements to make exchange, labor for service, or one good for another good, or a certain amount of cash, based on the belief that is mutually beneficial to each of them. When you have socialism, you take away the idea of something being mutually beneficial, and it's, a rent controlled apartment. It's great for the person who gets to rent it. It's not so great for the landlord who's forced to rent something at below market. And that's all that socialism, you call it democratic socialism or whatever, that's all it really does. So I guess some of the other things that I'm going to comment about a little bit, that democratic socialists would like to do away with the Supreme Court, the presidency as we know it, and the United States Senate.
Right.
So we're sitting here saying, well, they can't do that without amending the Constitution. I tell you, be cautious in that, because if you look at how many things have the federal courts, particularly the Supreme Court, over the last 75 years done that weren't really right. I mean, they've upheld minimum wage laws. That's not really violates the idea of free enterprise.
Right.
They've upheld, all kinds of things that run against freedom of exchange and by free people. If you got a president who appointed 5 democratic socialists to the Supreme Court, they can figure out a way to do away with the Senate. They can make the argument that, well, it's been 200 and some years, and that idea of every state having an equal vote, that was fine. That was a couple hundred years ago. Today, we really have to go by population, and we're going to just do away with the Senate. We don't need.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Gary. Yeah.
And the Supreme Court might just say, well, really, we should only do very limited things, or basically take that away. And we have a presidency. We have a 2-party system in America, because the presidential election is a winner-take-all election. In countries that have a parliamentary system, which is really what the democratic socialists want to go to, in a parliamentary system, you have many political parties are generated by special interests, and in order to get a majority, it's not the who has the most seats takes all. You have to have a majority, so you get coalitions of people, doing horse trading to form a government and appoint a prime minister or something like that. And so, George Washington didn't like the idea of political parties, but our system has created a 2-party system. Whether we like it or not, it's not the best in the world, because in an ideal world there wouldn't be political parties probably. But hey, it's what we've got. And a parliamentary system is very unstable. If you look at most of the countries that have parliamentary systems, many of them, they're forming new governments, within a year, or sometimes only in a few months that a prime minister lasts. And so you lose stability. So the system we have is not perfect, but I can't imagine a better system that's workable. And so I think that we have to sell the benefits of the system we have now, and encourage people to ask critical questions about, what democratic socialism really will promise, or what it will really deliver, not what it will promise, but what it will deliver, because I don't think what it's going to deliver is anywhere near what it is now promising.
Yeah, I agree.
Dale,
All right.
Dale, before you take the last leg of this segment tonight, I just want to throw up a viewer comment.
Okay.
I found it interesting, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it up here. David Nally says black markets also thrive under socialism, communism. It's another area we could discuss. We all know what black markets do, and the criminalization that gets involved there. So what are we inviting?
Well, that's that. Yeah, when shortages get created due to this system, that's where black markets thrive. That's where markets come about to meet those needs.
Yeah.
Very good comment. Good comment. All right, guys, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we've now looked at democratic socialism from three directions. What is happening, why it's happening, and what it can mean for America. And that brings us to the final question we ask in every COS perspective. How should we look at this through the principles and mission of Convention of States? So now let's turn to the COS perspective, and let's hope I can bring up my PowerPoint here and without any problems here. We'll see, okay? Okay, can you see this okay?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, good. Okay, we want to conclude now by looking at the issue through what we call the COS perspective. This is what makes our program different. Rather than ending by simply asking what should be done, we conclude by asking, what do the Convention of States resolution pillars and core values teach us about this issue? And it's the pillars of our resolution and the core values of the Convention of States. It's those two factors that combine to form what we call the COS perspective. The first one that applies, and what we see here are the highlighted pillars and core values that apply to this topic of democratic socialism. The first one is the pillar of fiscal responsibility. What does that mean in this discussion? Well, it means every public policy proposal should be evaluated not only by its promises, but by its long-term costs. Borrowing today becomes a burden on tomorrow's taxpayers. A free people have a responsibility to leave the next generation opportunity, not unmanageable debt. Fiscal responsibility reminds us that compassion and stewardship must go hand in hand. And we've talked about how, in our presentation here, how this is going to cost. There's going to be a cost associated with this. The second highlighted resolution pillar is federal jurisdiction, the reining in the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. The Constitution established a federal government with limited enumerated powers. There's that term, enumerated powers. We haven't talked about that in a long time. That doesn't answer every policy question, but it does ask an important one. Is this properly a federal responsibility, or is it better handled by states, local communities, or the people themselves? That constitutional balance is essential to preserving liberty. Now let's look at the core values that apply here. Our first highlighted core value is constitutional originalism. Sometimes people hear that phrase and think it simply means looking backward. It actually means beginning with the Constitution as it was written and understood. Before expanding governmental authority, we should first ask whether that authority was actually granted by the Constitution. The principle protects the freedoms of every American, regardless of political party. The next core value is culture of self-governance. America was built on the belief that free citizens are capable of governing themselves. Strong families matter. Strong communities matter. When more responsibility is shifted to the national government, we should also consider what responsibilities remain with citizens and the institutions closest to them. Self-government is ultimately about people accepting responsibility before asking government to do more. The final core value is real-world measurable impact. Good intentions are important, but they are not enough. Every policy should eventually be judged by measurable results. Does it improve people's lives? Does it strengthen freedom and opportunity? Does it solve the problem it was designed to address? Those are practical questions every citizen should ask. So we're asking the simple question: what do the Convention of States resolution pillars and core values teach us about this issue? Whoop. I skipped, didn't I? Sorry about that. Tonight, they remind us that constitutional government is built upon fiscal responsibility, limited federal authority, faithfulness to the Constitution, a culture of self-government, and evaluating public policy by measurable results. And that is our presentation on Democratic Socialism, America Reimagined. Just remember, an informed citizen is America's greatest strength. So, thanks, guys, for joining us tonight. Let me get out of this and get back to our screen here. Now, how do I do that? Okay. Thank you very much, guys, for participating in our COS perspective this evening. Does anyone have any final comments?
I've never been employed by a poor person.
by a poor person?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Well, under this system, you'd be employed by the government, basically. That's the way you would end up being employed by, I think.
A whole bunch of poor people.
All right. That's it. Thank you very much, Gary, Frank. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Night, guys.
Very good. Very good.
Interesting look.
Interesting topic, and certainly a topic that's prevalent right now and going to be discussed for the next how many days now until what this is August, September, October, about 60 some days?
Well, yeah, we're early August, so
90 days?
I'm close to 90 days. Yeah.
90 days, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll find out.
Yeah.
You know, as I mentioned, I really think this oath of office is going to come into play if this.
I would think that if I mean, yeah, I mean Frank made a point. You know, they're just gonna put their hand up there and mumble the words and go on their merry way. I think it should be almost looked at as a, you know, if that's what they do, if they actually do swear the oath, and then they get in there and start doing the hanky panky, they should be thrown out of office. And maybe, you know, is it tyranny? They should be thrown out of office at the least.
Yeah.
You know, because they're not upholding the oath that they swore to. Gosh, you know.
All right, let's move on here, Ken.
Yep.
Gary has put together a video for us on wealth inequity, kind of a an appropriate topic here. Now that we just discussed that to some extent, so let's take a break here and listen to what Gary has to say here. Okay.
All right.
Hi, it's Gary with Convention of States. And I want to talk today a little bit about the topic of wealth inequality, particularly extreme wealth inequality. So the first question you may have is, well, do we have extreme wealth inequality? It kind of seems like Elon Musk is a trillionaire. Let's take a look at what the data from the Federal Reserve says has happened over the last roughly 35 years. So if we go back to 1989, the top 1/10 of 1% of the wealthiest people in America would owned originally about 5% of all the assets. Today, they own about 12% of all assets. So almost 2.5 times more than what they had as a share in 1989. The next number to really focus on is the bottom 50%. The bottom 50% in 1989 owned about 12% of all the wealth. This is really wealth talking about financial accounts, financial assets. Probably a pretty good reflection of overall wealth of, counting all kinds of assets. But the bottom 50% that used to own 12%, now they own about 2.5%. So the bottom 50% of people in America are much worse off comparatively to where they were 35 years ago. If you were to go back to 1969, add another 30 or 59, add another 30 years to this, I think you'd probably find the bottom 50% back then probably owned 15, 18, maybe even 20% of the wealth. So wealth has become more and more concentrated over the last 35 and 75 years. And so what has happened based on academic studies throughout history, going back to the Roman Republic and more recently in places like post-World War I, Germany, Cuba, Mexican Revolution, these revolutions have come about as a result of social unrest and political instability produced in part by extreme wealth inequality. And two kinds of wealth that I want to talk about. One is productive wealth, the other is passive wealth. Now, productive wealth is wealth that has come about as a result of being a productive person, productive household. So Elon Musk is a trillionaire today, but his wealth has largely come from, and almost entirely really come from being a productive person, creating companies and businesses and things that didn't exist before. On the other hand, passive wealth is wealth that comes about from people who simply begin with a lot of assets, are able to borrow more money and invest in more assets that appreciate more rapidly than the interest on the debt accumulates. This is largely the Federal Reserve has created this inflation that has benefited borrowers and made people who could effectively borrow money to buy real assets, whether they were homes, stocks, bonds, these kinds of things, have grown very wealthy. We're talking about the hedge fund class, the hedge fund manager class as well, people that are, multimillionaires and billionaires. So that is passive wealth as opposed to productive wealth. And the outcome, a result that often happens when you have great wealth inequality, is that the levers of government policy come to a greater and greater degree under the control of the very wealthy, of the few people. A great example of this today, we're trying to get the SAVE Act passed. The Senate will not pass it. And even though 80% of the people would like to have this passed, the elites, and the Senate is the elites and controlled and funded by the elites do not want the SAVE Act passed for whatever reason it is. And so they answer to the elites and not to we the people. The outcome that is typical of this kind of situation is one of two directions. The social unrest and political instability is going to go one of two directions. One direction is a form of populism that encourages and supports free market capitalism. That is a capitalism that is not heavily regulated as it is in the United States today. A free market capitalism produces social and economic mobility, so people are not locked into wherever they began in life, but they have mobility to get out of that through free market capitalism. The other possible direction of society is toward socialism, that is collectivism, and Marxism. And socialism is just further concentrates the power of the elites. There is no socialist country, nor has there ever been any socialist country, which was both free and prosperous. When you destroy the incentives to innovate, you destroy prosperity. It takes a while, but it definitely happens. And so in the United States today, we're looking at one of two outcomes as I see it. One is a more of a return to free market capitalism and a limited government, which is what Convention of States is working toward, or we can go the direction of more towards socialism, in which government power and increases and freedom decreases. So we want greater freedom, and we want a Convention of States to put limits on government spending, limits on government power, and term limits for those federal officials that are really serving the interests of the elite, whether they are in elected office or appointed office. That's wealth inequality as I see it. I'm Gary, and that's how I see it.
You're on. Ken's on the phone again. So Ken's got a bad situation going on, and he's just can't seem. He's got to take some phone calls and get to work on that. So we will let Ken deal with that phone situation, and we'll just move on. Now, one of the things that we try to do every week is we try to give you a Dave's Daily Dose. And these come from David Punt, who is the state director for Convention of States in Minnesota. And David does a weekly, I think almost a daily radio show. And he creates these recordings, and he then shares those with us so that we pick out one that's very appropriate, we think, and we play it every week here on COS Today. So I'm going to go ahead and run our Dave's Daily Dose for tonight. Here we go.
If you're into politics at all, this has to be a very confusing time. On the right or the left or the super left, the extreme lefties are pushing the envelope and saying things out loud that sound pretty wacky, almost like in the beginning. Imagine for a second you've always pledged allegiance to the king, and you would never think about crossing a member of his court. In that realm of thinking, getting rid of the U.S. Senate and combining the presidency and the Supreme Court into a supercommittee subordinate to the U.S. House doesn't seem all that wacky? Wait a minute. Sure it does. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. I'm in the middle of a book on getting rid of the Electoral College, and the guy is making a good argument. Convincing? Not quite. I have to do more reading and listening, and there are guys and gals whose opinion I respect, and I'll probably end up listening to a video or two of Victor Davis Hanson or Jonathan Turley or guys like that talking about the issue. Meanwhile, I'll continue wading through a book by Jesse Wegman, a lawyer who used to write for the New York Times editorial board, but I'll continue reading his book anyway. Let the People Pick the President, because it's interesting. Wegman outlines that the Electoral College was invented in the beginning to balance out the differences in the influence of big states versus small states, back when there was only 13 of them. The college has been tinkered with through the years, like when Jefferson and Adams were trading opportunities at the White House. The element of the college that seems to be the most out there will come up tomorrow night when Donald Trump and his assistants talk about the election of 2020 and the January 6th incident at the Capitol. One conspiracy theory I've heard had Mike Pence failed to recognize a legal protest of the election, which would have wiped out a number of Electoral College votes and thrown the election into the House of Representatives. Madness? Or allowing the Constitution to work like it's supposed to? We'll see, and I'll let you know how the book turns out. Meanwhile, remember these words: freedom and liberty, and what they cost. I'm David Allen Punt.
David Allen Punt. Yeah, he's always doing a good job here. Let me get the right screen here. That's better. But always enjoy Dave's Daily Dose. So thank you very much, Dave. Well, I want to wind up this evening with another recording. I did a presentation on what we're calling the informed citizen, is what we're entitling this. We're also referring to it as the low information voter, but our official title for this presentation that I'm going to play for you now is the informed citizen. And I think this really plays into what we were talking about with regard to democratic socialism and so many other issues that are going on in this country. You've got to make yourself informed. You've got to keep yourself informed as to what's going on in this country, because you're going to have to vote. You're going to have to make some decisions for this country. And it's the voters that are going to make these decisions. So you got to keep yourself informed. So let me play what I put together here, just a few minutes on the informed citizen. So here we go. All right, folks, let's talk about the informed citizen. And let me get right to that. I want to bring up my PowerPoint here, and we'll get going on this. So give me just a minute here, and we'll get ready to go here. So, okay. And couple more clicks here, and we're ready to go. All right. Today, I'd like to discuss one of the greatest responsibilities each American has. Not simply the right to vote, but the responsibility to become an informed citizen. You know, Benjamin Franklin reminded us that preserving our republic depends upon the people. Why this matters? Never before have we had so much information available. Yet determining what is accurate has become increasingly difficult, to say the least. The challenge today isn't finding information, it's finding reliable information. So what is an informed citizen? Being informed doesn't mean everyone agrees. It means making the effort to learn before reaching conclusions, verify facts, compare viewpoints, and continue learning. Why information matters? Well, every election, school board meetings, and local decision begins with informed citizens. Our votes shape our communities and our nation. Some obstacles. Today's media environment requires intentional effort. Headlines compete for attention. Algorithms reinforce existing views, and emotions often replace thoughtful discussion. What's the cost? History reminds us that free societies require engaged citizens. When citizens disengage, accountability weakens and poor decisions accumulate over time. Becoming an informed citizen. The good news is that becoming informed is within everyone's reach. Read original sources, compare viewpoints, verify information, learn the Constitution, and stay involved locally. Here's the final challenge. Our founders believed ordinary citizens could govern themselves because they believed ordinary citizens would accept the responsibility to stay informed. The future of our constitutional republic won't be decided solely in Washington. It will be decided in millions of homes by millions of citizens making millions of informed decisions. If each of us commits to becoming a better informed citizen, we'll strengthen not only our communities, but our nation. Being an informed citizen isn't someone else's responsibility. It's our greatest responsibility. Well, I hope today's presentation has given you something to think about and perhaps something to share with others. If you found this presentation valuable, please like it, share it, and subscribe so you won't miss future programs. Until next time, stay informed, Stay engaged, and together, let's continue working to preserve the freedoms that make America exceptional. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was just a brief presentation on being an informed citizen. So very, very important, and especially in today's time. So, because there's so much information out there and coming from so many different directions. So it's important that you become and maintain yourself as an informed citizen. Okay, let's wrap it up here. I see Ken is basically still tied up on his situation, so we'll let Ken go for this evening. I just want to once again remind everyone that if you want to find us, find our upcoming broadcast, the best way is to search for us on YouTube, American Patriots for Convention of States. That's our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States. You search on YouTube for that channel, and there you'll find our current broadcast and any past broadcasts. So that's how the best way to find us. If you have any questions about or comments about tonight's broadcast that you would like to notify us about, drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Well, folks, that is a wrap for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation. We'll be coming up. I did want to mention that we're going to be having another COS Perspective segment. Obviously, that's a segment where we delve deeper into a topic. And our next one's going to be on August 24th, Monday, August 24th. And that COS Perspective topic is going to be birth tourism. And we're in the process of developing that. That also is a very hot topic, as you know. So I'm sure we'll have a very, very good discussion on that, on birth tourism, coming up on the 24th of August. So for tonight, let's let Marengo Mike close us out here for tonight, and that'll be it. So look for us again next Monday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, for COS Today. Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition, and consider using your talents to become an active